All right. It
All
does
the
say
digital devices.
All right, we got a crowd. All right, Colin. Oh, wait. We're doing the workshop first?
Yeah, we're going to do a workshop, and you're going to present the certificate first.
All right, but I'm still
We have-
calling the regular meeting as well, so let's do a pledge first. All right. I'm going to go through the workshop, but I can open them both. All right, so I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you all. Don't have any what?
There's no votes for the workshop, so you don't need a regular meeting.
No, I know. I just decided to do it up front. And just looking around, I see...
Can you use your mic?
I see all the usual suspects. I would say everyone is here. I also see online the city attorney. Is it just you, Nick, or is anyone else on with you?
Correct, just me this evening. Good evening, everyone.
Okay.
And our planner will be joining us, but is not on yet.
Okay. So first we are doing a workshop, regardless of whether we did a pledge and a look around for attendance. So we'll do that first, and then once we finish up, we'll turn to the regular meeting agenda. And for those of you unaccustomed to this, that's because we're trying out in the summer is to give us a little bit of a break. So we're doing both a workshop and a council meeting on a Monday, then skip a week, and then doing it again, and then skip a Monday. And we're doing that in July and August, and we'll see how it works. Okay, and the meeting is hybrid, right? So we have a group online. Because it's workshop, we won't be asking a lot of people to speak, but in the regular meeting, which we'll get to after that, you will have an opportunity for public comment. All right, so first one is a recognition. I get to do that. John, that's for you. All right, so I have here a certificate of recognition. I got to come up there and read it and hand it to you. And I know it's not much, for these years, but I'm glad you're here. Right? So this is a City of Beacon Certificate of Recognition presented to John Pamerico in recognition and appreciation for more than 36 years of dedicated public service to the City of Beacon, dated today and signed by whoever that mayor guy is. So, John, I just want to say thank you. Right. Sure.
Chris, do you want to get in so I can get a picture?
Oh, no, I'm going to try to get the same photo. But I would get in.
But 36 years is pretty amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the other item that we need Mickey for, then we can send him home, is the next one, which is an update on milling, paving, and accessible ramps. Don't know if you'll be asked questions, assume you will, but Chris, you want to open it up, or do you hand it off to Mickey right away?
I'll just introduce it. So each year we do a number of streets with the funding that we get through the CHIPS, which is state funding, and also Pave New York. We had a little extra funding this year, so we have put on the list 21 streets to be repaved, plus 3 additional ones that we're doing on behalf of Central Hudson, where they've put utilities in the street and they'll be paying for them. So you have a list in your packet and online of the 24 streets that we'll be doing, and if you have any questions, Mickey Manzi, our superintendent of streets, is here. Right now we are waiting for a bid on the curb ramps to come back on Thursday, and then hopefully we can move forward with that and incorporate it in. We were holding off on paving, and I think now we're looking at a late August or September start of milling. and paving. So again, this is where we go back in and we mill down the top surface, and then we restore it with new pavement, just like we did on Main Street. And then we come back through and do any necessary restriping.
Chris, I don't know if this is a question for you or for Mickey, but I'm curious how the roads were prioritized. Was it based on level of use, the condition of the road, something else, or a combination?
You want to answer?
Yeah,
Chairman?
go ahead, please.
Typically, based off the list, I go through the streets and kind of try to do an assessment visually, look at the conditions of the roads. For instance, like here, the first street on here I have up Buchanan. You can see I have the streets broken down into sections of the city, so I try to spread it around based on section as well, location. But like the first one there, Buchanan Street, 90% of that neighborhood has already been, since I've been here in my 16 years, it's been repaved. Most of it's been repaved. That's the one that we have not done since I've been here. So once we wrap that up, that whole neighborhood should be in pretty good shape. Willow Street, I think, was my first year, and the first year when I was here, Central Hudson went through and kind of tore into it and had at it, and so you can see as you're heading towards Main Street on the right side where Central Hudson cut in, so that's been pretty beat up and in dire need. A couple other ones that, just like I was looking at Aldridge Place, as you come down the hill there, I don't know if you're familiar with that. I looked at that, and then I looked at the whole area surrounding it. There weren't a lot of streets, or large streets. So funding-wise, I looked at that and I said, well, we can get that whole area done. We've gotten some complaints from some residents in Sycamore. That was in pretty bad shape in the entrance. I think Chris is familiar with the pothole list that we had started, and that was one of the hot spots. So looking into that, I went through there and determined to get that done as well. It's definitely funding has a lot to do with it. Trying to put together what it would be in material, how much it's going to cost the city to get it done, and if we have enough money to get them done. Like I said, typically, since I've been here, we usually do about 10 to 12 roads a year, so this is a lot more than we've done in the past. The Peister we have, I was going to do the whole thing. It's not in too bad a shape from Hidden Brook to Washington Avenue, but since then we determined there's a problem with the storm drainage, so we're going to hold off on that, repair the storm drainage, and we'll probably put that on the slate for next year. But again, the Peister's in pretty bad shape in the one stretch from East Main. And then last year we did Howland Avenue, so that whole stretch will be all new. So I'm trying to take bits and pieces and get complete areas done.
Mickey,
Sure.
the very bottom, so it used to be that we published this list, Central Hudson would somehow get a hold of it, and then they do road work on every road as soon as we repave, right? And now we've kind of chasing them a little bit. Can you tell us about the reimbursements at the bottom?
Sure. And this is a big project that Central Hudson took on, so I don't think they were going to get into too much more than what they did. What they did was on Center Street, they had to replace a gas main because they had constant leaks there. So they were replacing a 12-inch main there. And with that, there was a 6-inch and a 4-inch. 6-inch was on East Street and a 4-inch was on Master's Place. So what they did was they got into the road and they started going through, and part of the street opening permit, especially with the volume that they were doing, they were kind of going to be on the hook for doing a whole lane and patching the road work. I talked to them and negotiated with them, and they were okay with, I built out an estimate for them for us to mill and pave the roads. We're using our contractors, and they agreed to reimburse us for the work to be done for those 3 streets. So those 3 are above and beyond. That's why Chris has here, he put down on the list Central Hudson reimbursements. The city will be reimbursed for those streets. If you've driven by, you can see they got their trenches dug, and there's item 4 in there, and there's stone. It's kind of messy in there.
But we had an economy of scale because of the other roads that we're doing. Rather than them come back and do a not-so-great patch, we can do a brand-new surface on that road, on all 3 of those roads.
And how long do you estimate it will take to get through all these roads? So you're starting in maybe late August, but mid-September, would it then stretch into the spring? Or?
It should be about 3 years, I think. No, I'm teasing. I estimate on this list it's probably going to be about 8 or 9 days of milling. It's about 6,700 ton of blacktop. Our contractor likes to do 1,000 ton a day, so about 7 days of paving. So roughly 3 weeks.
Okay. Will roads be closed or have limited access during that time?
The only time we close roads completely is for the blacktop, and it's only until it gets to a cool temperature where cars can drive on it, because otherwise they do damage, kind of like what we did on Main Street. The milling, we'll try to, because they can't, as long as we allow traffic to go through and are conscious of the machines and the trucks going through, and we can utilize and keep the traffic rolling that way. It's really just when we pave, we'd have to shut them down for a couple hours. And so what we do is usually try to man each side of the street. We notify all the residents. Over the last couple of years, we've used Swift 911, which has really been a help getting the word out. I think we really over-communicated for Main Street. I think it went pretty well overall.
And we'll replicate that as we go into neighborhoods. We'll try to target Swift 911 calls to let people know it's coming.
You know, with a list like this, I try to estimate how long our mill machine, and it's subcontracted, obviously. So I try to guesstimate how long or how much they can get done in a day. Sometimes they get done a little bit more, so we may have to jump ahead of our schedule that we put out in post. So it kind of has to be updated frequently, probably every day or every other day, depending on how we do. Obviously, if we get rain, it throws a monkey wrench in. But this order here is probably what I'm going to actually go off of once we get started.
And Mickey, did I hear you say that DePeister is not supposed to be on this list because of a storm drainage issue?
No, my original thought was to do all of DePeister from East Main to Washington Avenue, but the water department ended up televising a section of the storm drain from Hidden Brook to Washington Avenue, and there's a couple spots that are bad, so we have to look into that and possibly upgrade and change the storm drain there.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So I scaled back rather than trying to rush to get that done and fall back on the paving. That section of the road isn't too bad anyway. So I figured we'd try to get done with the worst of it, and then we'll, like I say, continue on and finish up that piece next year.
Just out of curiosity, what's done with the milling material? Is that recycled, or does that just go to a landfill?
No, we actually utilize it. We've been utilizing the pile that we have in the parks, and the reason why the pile was in the park, I know there's a lot of question on that. We had Precision Pipeline, who was doing work for Central Hudson. They were staging in front of our office, which is where we started storing it after that. And there was some stuff going on down the wastewater treatment plant too, so we couldn't store anything down there. So now, as I've been using it, we utilize it for the parking lots of the park. When the guys
At the
are rebuilding,
waterfront, we just used it.
Yep. When we rebuild catch basins, the guys will put them around the structures until we get to the blacktop.
Wilk Street with that informal path was all millings.
Now, one of the other things too, in our capital plan, I had, and I'm sure you guys all remember, the,
The hot paver.
the hot box. You can actually utilize, as long as the millings are fine enough, you can utilize the millings in this hot box to create blacktop. There's an additive, I think it's like an oil additive that you put in there to create it, but you put it in there, you heat it up, and you can reuse the millings like a blacktop, like a hot mix. So that there was another advantage to that machine.
Do you guys does your crew do all the prep work in terms of like the manhole covers and stuff? To get
Yes.
around that? And,
Right now, I have my two masons are going through right now. They go through street by street. I don't think they're necessarily following this order right now. But they go through each street that we're going to mill and pave, checking all the catch basins, making sure that if there are issues with the block work on the top, they'll rebuild them. So people may start seeing the guys out on some of these streets.
And water does their
Water does their water
infrastructure.
valves and manholes and anything that they think that is an issue. As far as the milling, obviously we have the big machine come in, but our guys will drive the trucks and haul the millings away. And sometimes we bring some outside contractors in to help haul it. They keep the material as part of them keeping that machine rolling and not slowing that machine down, because we pay by the day for it. So that's something we've done in the past. The fine tuning, as far as the final cleanup around the structures where the big machine can't get, that's all done in-house through the highway and the water department.
So there is a value to the millings. You compensate some of these subcontractors. You actually give them the millings? Is that what you
Well,
said? Yeah.
we don't pay for them to drive their trucks. We don't pay for fuel for them driving the trucks. So we do have a pretty good stockpile of it right now.
Mhm.
And like I said, we have 6,700 ton roughly of blacktop that we will be putting down. So it's pretty much, we take out 1.5 inches, we put down 1.5 inches. So it's pretty much the equivalent.
No, it's-
And it helps to keep the workflow, like, we
Yeah.
keep what we need, but then we trade the value of that for somebody being there on call taking the millings. Like when we did Main Street, you saw the trucks lining up 6 and 7 and 8 deep. Some of those were our trucks, but some were also
Yeah, I noticed
people in
that.
the area that wanted the millings.
No,
And
it's
again,
great. It's great that it's got a value and that it's being reused and it's
yeah,
not going to a
it's a
landfill
good,
somewhere. Yeah.
it's been a nice relationship, because they know our systems too. So they come in and they get in the queue and then take out.
Right.
What tends to happen too is, I mean, obviously these streets are in different locations, especially where we stockpile. We're very limited to where we can. We're fortunate we've been able to use the highway garage property there. But the further you get towards the other side of town, it takes the guys longer to get back, get their load down to the highway, dump it, and get back. So that's all timed down. So if we just stuck with our 4 or 5 trucks, that machine wouldn't move as fast as it does. So it really helps us keep it rolling. And like I say, we pay by the day as a contract price for that mill machine.
It's quite a choreography you've got going.
Yeah,
There
it's-
wasn't a lot of downtime on Main Street.
Oh, no, I watched it.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was beautiful, yeah.
I have a similar question about the accessible ramps. Just wanted to understand a little bit more about why those particular intersections are getting ramps, and so I didn't know if there's any insight there that you could provide. either
Sure.
of you.
Basically, in order to be eligible for the CHIPS funds or to utilize the CHIPS funding, the roads need to be ADA compliant. So what we do is if there's not an ADA ramp, we need to add one. So that's why we went through that list, and it wasn't extensive because quite a few of the streets don't even have sidewalks at this time. But then, like I said, there were a couple areas where there was, I think, 2 or 3 in an area. It was really just when you go through the road and you say, hey, it kind of just has a square abutment, there's no ADA compliance here, we have to add a ramp.
So
And that
our
can be paid out of
engineer-
CHIPS
Our
funds.
engineer went through and looked at where we would need to put them in.
Oh, thank you.
So the only thing I'd add is when we redo a road from start to finish, it's in the millions of dollars. But when you do it the right way, it lets you do, I don't know, how many rounds of milling and paving can you do over how many years before you have to redo a road, and it's very, very cost effective.
Yes, I mean, I think we had this conversation before. Just for a general rule, like when we redid Phillips Street back in 2019, that was over $4 million, or just under $4 million. It was right around there. So that's one street. Basically, when you look at this here, I'm estimating this to be about 600, maybe 800,000, probably about 800 with everything said and done by the time we get the paint and everything done. So you get quite a few streets done versus just one with the major reconstruction.
And then, Mickey, can you also just mention the preventative maintenance you do in the out years with the crack sealant?
Sure. In my budget, I also have crack filling. And what that is it's part of the program that has been here since I've been here pretty much. What I established was the roads that have been paved like 5 or 6 years ago, as the blacktop starts to crack, we come through and we crack fill to prevent that from getting any worse. Because what happens is the moisture gets in there, the roads, it gets cold in the wintertime, heaves, you start getting cracking, and it starts spidering the road. So if we can catch that early enough as you get a couple of those fine cracks, it'll prevent any further damage.
So like you'll see somewhat squiggly lines on some of the older roads, and that's crack sealing that we're doing.
And Chris, the state funding, does that come in a timely way, or is that something that's kind of difficult to coordinate in terms of the work?
The reimbursement, you
It
mean?
comes as a reimbursement?
Yeah, it comes as a reimbursement. We do the work, and then we have an account at DOT, and we seek reimbursement and show them that we've expended the money.
And you don't have to wait until the end of the year or anything?
I don't recall that being difficult, do you?
No, I don't think so. I mean, basically, I'm looking at this as, say, like, for right now, we got a little bit of a late start because we were trying to figure out what was in there versus our reimbursements from last year and what we had as a balance. But as far as the reimbursements, I think once we get all our paperwork to them, I think it's turned around pretty quickly.
Yeah. And what Mickey is talking about, in the capital plan, we're aiming for about $400,000 a year. We had leftover funds, so I said, let's get that out in the field and see what we can do. And that lets us go down the wish list of streets further, and then next year queues up the next round. That might not have been until 2 years later.
Okay, everyone?
Cool. Thank you, Mickey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Rachel, you're up next. So we've got a presentation from Legal Services of the Hudson Valley. Chris, you want to do an intro? And
Sure. Last year, the council put money in the budget for tenant advocacy services, and we worked with Legal Services of the Hudson Valley to put into effect a contract starting February 1st. We are now at 6 months in that contract, and Rachel Saunders is here with some of her colleagues to give an update on how much use that program has gotten and what they're seeing in terms of tenant evictions here in the city of Beacon Court.
Good evening, everybody.
Yeah.
Good evening. I think everybody knows me. I'm Rachel Saunders. I'm the attorney in charge of the Dutchess County Office for Legal Services of the Hudson Valley. With me are two members of the Poughkeepsie office. Patience Hughes is the staff attorney who represents tenants in eviction proceedings. She is the attorney who does most of the Beacon cases, so she is often here in this courtroom representing tenants. Stephen Mahalik, you're going to hear from in a moment, and he is the paralegal who is assigned to this grant. So I thought it was important to hear directly from him because he is the person who is on the front lines doing the work day to day. And I'm sure you would love to have lots of questions for Patience, but today we're gonna really focus on Stephen and the tenant advocacy services. So the first, you can, next.
Ben?
Okay. So I wanted to kind of talk about, so what have we done over the last 6 months? And I realized I forgot the first thing that we did, which is we created a contract. So, 7 months ago, about that, I came in front of the council, I talked about this program, you voted on it, and you voted to have this, this chunk of money dedicated to tenant advocacy services. So the first thing we did is we worked with Nick, who I believe is out there somewhere in the ether, and Chris, and we hammered out a contract, and we really talked through, what does this look like in practice, and how does it, what are the things that we can create that will really benefit this community and our tenants who are facing an eviction. So we do have that contract. I don't know if that's something, Chris, that you provided to the council, but it really very clearly states what our obligations are, and what we report about. What data points we're reporting on. Then I assigned a staff member, that would be Stephen, to this grant, and I had the benefit of Stephen knew what was coming. He's been doing a lot of work around, working with tenants. So, this community had the benefit of somebody who really came with a lot of experience. So, the first thing we did is we drafted a flyer. I realized I wish I'd put it in the PowerPoint so that people online could see it, but I did include it with the email. This is a flyer. Chris looked it over, we all had some comments, and we came up with a flyer. And I would, welcome anyone. I'm happy to, I keep dropping off to Chris if you go low, but if anybody in the community would like some. Really it is finding tenants who, I think people who are coming to this courthouse oftentimes know to call us. But it's getting somebody who, for example, was served with a predicate notice saying you have to, you're being evicted in that period of time. So, feel free to distribute throughout the community. The other thing we did is we met with the judges and the court staff because really, as community members, as legal services, we can shout it out. We put it on our Facebook page. Our attorneys, are talking to people. People talk to each other. But, we really want the hearts and minds of the court staff, when they see somebody, to say, hey, call legal services. So we did meet with them. It took a while. It took maybe, a little pushing, a little prodding, but we did get that meeting. Both judges were present, as was the court staff. We talked to them about this project and what it was. And they took the flyers. I don't know, to be perfectly honest, if the flyers are distributed or not. I know that every time we come, I've sent Stephen to distribute. I know that Chris, very kindly put some outside so that people coming in and out could see. So I think at this point, and we have a good relationship with the court in terms of when we want to, for example, get a file from the court, or we're putting in our notice of appearance, like we have a good relationship. But we do want the court to send people over. And then, we do the intake, and we, Stephen works up a case that comes to us. So that's what we've been doing for the last 6 months. All right, next. Okay, so the next 2 slides are really about statistics, and I want to kind of walk through, and I also want to talk a little bit about what this council can always find on their own, because there is a lot of data out there, and it's been a learning process for me as well to understand what you can all find at any point in time, because statistics are good, and they help us sort of understand the lay of the land. So there is a website, and I will send it around to Chris. I sent it to the lawyer, but I did not send it to, and I did not add it here, but there is a website where you can find all of the data that you need on evictions throughout the state. So what we learned is that since the contract year, there have been 52 summary proceedings. That means eviction proceedings here in Beacon. 59 since January 1st. 17 since the contract date were holdover proceedings. That means that it could be the lease is over, there could be a lease violation, the person could be month to month, and the owner doesn't want them to continue on. And there's 35 non-payment proceedings. That means just that. You're not paying rent, we want our unit back. I will say that Nick did ask me if I could parse out like lease violations from, landlords who are evicting because they want their lease possession back. That's not something that the court takes statistics on. That would be interesting, tell us something, but that doesn't exist. The number of eviction warrants, so everybody knows an eviction is not complete until you've gotten notice, you're going to be evicted, you go to court, a judge says eviction, issues a warrant, the sheriff comes and executes that eviction. That's when an eviction actually happens, when the sheriff comes to your door and you get a notice on your door and you have time and you know that it's going to happen. So those eviction warrants, there have been 21 issued since the contract date, 22 this year. And I think in the end, my last slide is really about some challenges, and I think, why there's only been that number has a little bit to do about the current state of the law, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that at the end. So on this So that all is public information. You can find that at any point, and I'll send around where you can. It's a little confusing, so if anybody wants, or I can show Ben or I can show Chris how to use it, and then they can show you, because it's not exactly user-friendly, but you can get information. So what have we provided to this grant? 114 case hours, mostly Stephen, some of a supervisor who supervises Stephen. Number of summary proceedings, so number of eviction cases in which we provided legal services is 37. So in 37 cases. There are 2 cases where homelessness was prevented. Now, why is it only 2? Because, again, as we'll talk about in a moment, there's a couple reasons. One is we only count it when the case is closed. So we added the below sentence, which we worked very hard on, to articulate some of the reasons, because there are cases that are not yet closed, but we anticipate that they are going to show that homelessness was prevented. The other thing is that a lot of people are getting what I think most people might have heard of ERAP stays. So their eviction is not continuing because they have a little bit of a breather because of money that's coming in from the state to pay arrears or monies owed. I'm just going to read the last sentence, and guess if anybody has questions about it. So we talked about those 37 matters that were provided assistance under this grant. 9 matters have been closed, 2 of which were closed direct representation. That means what we represented the client in court and reported that homelessness has been prevented. 7 matters were closed with either brief services, we provided advice and counsel, maybe we negotiated something, or we provided a referral, maybe to an agency that can help with arrears, whatever was appropriate. There are currently 28 matters still pending, so they're still open. And in 3 of those matters, although not administratively closed, we anticipate that what they're going to show is that homelessness was prevented. So I hope that makes sense. So now I am going to turn it over to Stephen, who's going to talk about what the day-to-day, what it looks like, what he does, what the tasks that he does, and then he's going to briefly talk about 2 good case studies.
Hi. So as a general paralegal in a law office where there are many attorneys but only one of me, I don't always have the opportunity to become very involved in individual cases. But this housing-specific grant from Beacon has allowed me to work in a much more hands-on manner, and I think provide some useful assistance to the attorney that I've been working with. And so what this looks like is clients will be referred to me directly either through our central intake line or because they've seen advertisements in Beacon that will have my direct phone number on them. And I'll do the initial intake where I assess whether they're eligible for our services, and I'll collect all the necessary facts and information on the case so that I can present it to the attorney. If there is a court case, I will request the court file from Beacon City Court, and then I will schedule any in-person or telephone meetings with the attorney, which sometimes I'll be present for. Sometimes we're trying to get a case dismissed, and so I will work with clients and assist in drafting an affidavit in support of the motion to dismiss. I'll also sometimes provide advice to clients if it's been provided to me by an attorney, and I will apply for arrears assistance in cases where there's rental arrears. So next slide. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about a few cases that have come to us since the start of the grant. One of which was a holdover eviction where the landlord was alleging lease violations. And so this is a longtime resident of Beacon who also has a Section 8 voucher. And so that complicates things because when tenants are evicted, they're also at risk of losing their Section 8 voucher, which they need to be able to afford rent. So this was one of those cases where we were trying to get the case dismissed, and so I worked with the client on drafting the affidavit in support of the motion to dismiss, and ultimately the case was dismissed. So the client was able to retain their housing and their Section 8 voucher. Next slide, please. And so some other cases that have come to us were non-payment eviction cases where there were minor children in the household, some of whom were disabled. And so this is a major concern because you may have situations where minor children have to be placed in emergency shelters, or they may have to be relocated outside of their school districts. So these were cases where I applied for rental arrears, both from within our organization and from a partnering organization. And fortunately, we were awarded the assistance and the cases were able to be settled. And so their families were able to stay in their homes and their communities.
I mean, I can't underscore enough, when we talk about, for example, finding rental arrears, the documentation required by so many of these programs are onerous. And to have somebody like Stephen, who, he's gone to tenants' clients' homes, helps them find the documentation, it's not easy. And so we know, anecdotally, that there are people who probably would qualify for rental assistance, rental arrears. There's programs that pay for all kinds of things that people can't access because it's very onerous, it's very difficult, and if you don't provide exactly the right documentation, you're going to be denied. I can tell you, as the manager in my office, I review every application, and oftentimes we're going back and forth, to get this client the arrears money to fit under this specification. And so we work hard as a team, and we've got a paralegal, an attorney, and a manager, and a whole grants department. But when we're going to other agencies, it can often be, it's a lot of pushing. So my last slide, before I open it up for questions, is sort of anticipating some of the things that I thought people would raise as issues. And the first one I'm going to actually raise is what Dan asked me as we were walking in the courtroom, which is probably the biggest question that people have, which is, if a person doesn't qualify for our services, where do you send them? The reality is there is no other provider in Dutchess County, or in most of our counties, that provides free civil legal services to tenants facing evictions. Right now I've got 3 full-time attorneys doing housing eviction work. And so, as you can imagine, for every case that comes to us in Dutchess County, we try our best to, put people in the right direction. There are agencies that can potentially help. But there is no other legal services provider that does this work. My agency runs a pro bono unit that sometimes can assist, and they're really trying to prevail upon the private bar to do some of this pro bono work. And so we do see cases in court where a pro bono attorney, that is a private attorney who's agreeing to represent a tenant free of charge, we do see that from time to time, and that's something that we hope to build up. But that's the reality. So, some of the trends and challenges, when we talk about ERAP stay, so ERAP is a pot of money from the government to help. I think people have heard of this 15 months that you can apply for to pay for arrears funding. And per the law, if you've applied for that funding, your court case is halted. However, what we're finding more increasingly, if patients were up here, what she would say is that 15 months for a lot of her clients are coming to an end. And so the judges so if you owe more than the 15 months, the judges are now saying, well, forget that 15 months, we're going to go ahead with this case based on money is owed outside of that 15 months. So we're finding people who that is coming to an end. Now, what does that lead to? Our next big challenge? Where do people go? I mean, I know this council, talks a lot, has been very thoughtful about affordable housing. Where do people go? But it is really, really an issue. We have the Section 8 wait list is actually growing shorter and shorter because people can't avail themselves of that Section 8 voucher, which is like gold in someone's hand, because they can use that voucher to live wherever they choose. But there are no places to go. There's nowhere to use that Section 8 voucher. So that is an issue. We haven't seen it full on, but as time goes on, that's what we're going to be seeing. More and more people, the sheriff is going to be coming, effectuating that eviction, and the question is, where does that family go? I mean, we hope that it doesn't get to that point. We try, when we get a client who has that Section 8 voucher, for example, we try to get them out because Section 8 will still work with them if the sheriff hasn't come, so we try to get people out as quick as we can. We are very excited I'm actually hiring right now somebody who's going to be more like a social worker, a case manager, and that person is going to be really, I think, a big part of their job is going to be helping people find affordable housing and pounding the pavement in every housing option in this county. So, yeah, I mean, I think that covers really what the challenge is right now. So, I am open for questions.
Hi. I don't know if you have the numbers for this, but do you know how many people in Beacon have done the initial screening, and of those, how many don't qualify?
I don't have that number.
Are you able to get it?
I think so.
I'd like to see that too.
Also, what are some of the factors, beyond income that a person makes that would disqualify a tenant? I know we asked this before, but are there any factors that you've seen repeatedly that keep coming up?
Income. It's income.
Okay.
I mean,
could you tell us what the maximum income is?
I don't have the numbers for income eligibility. I could get that for you, but
that would be great. Yeah, because I've had people coming to me saying that they make less than $32,000 a year and they still don't qualify, and that's not a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, I can provide you the income eligibility.
Thank you.
Rachel, would these numbers, these statistics that we've been talking about, would they be any different had we not, what was the impact of the good cause eviction law, would you say, on these
I really
numbers?
can't speak, so I can't speak to, sorry, I'm not clear about your question.
I'm just wondering if, had we not passed a good cause eviction, would the numbers that we're seeing and the ability to help and resolve cases and, in support of the tenants, would it be any different if the good cause, because there's issues in good cause that
Unfortunately, it's just not a question I can answer for a couple of reasons. One is Legal Services Corporation, which is the federal funder for legal services, precludes us from speaking on pending legislation. I know this isn't pending legislation, but on top of that, I think you're asking me a hypothetical that I just don't have enough data to be able to answer. And I just...
Perhaps we could reframe the question and get to the same answer. Have you used Beacon's good cause eviction to prevent any evictions? It's not a theoretical, it's a law.
Right. I do not believe that the Beacon good cause eviction law has been litigated yet in City of Beacon Eviction Court.
Okay.
I guess a follow-up to that would, the numbers of evictions that you had there, or proceedings that were started, Do you know that, has there been an uptick in those evictions since last year? Do you have the statistics from
Well,
last
yes,
year?
because I don't, but I could tell you that, yes, because last year there were,
There's a moratorium?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, right.
As a follow-up to that, do you know, I know that we're a different population size, but do you have any sense from maybe other contracts you have of how we compare to other municipalities in Dutchess in terms of the rate of evictions that we're experiencing right now and the rates of other municipalities?
I mean, I looked at Poughkeepsie just because I was curious, and I don't recall the number offhand, but it is much, much higher. But it's not a fair comparison, right, because the population is so much larger. So I think that's a hard question to answer because I would have to look at the same size population and compare those numbers. So I can't really answer that. I don't have that information.
What's the reason why the Section 8 vouchers can't be used? Is it because landlords aren't accepting them?
No, it is against the law to not accept a Section 8 voucher. But if the unit, I mean, this is going farther into sort of the legalities of eviction law. And I will say, when Chris and I have talked about this, we are happy to do like a Know Your Rights presentation. We've talked about doing it right before city council meeting. And so that would be something we could talk about, sort of the interplay between, what the laws are around Section 8 vouchers and what the issues are. But what we are seeing is that units are priced above the Section 8 rate, and so therefore the landlord is not required to take that voucher.
Well, they can't, to be more specific, they can't afford the apartment. If they have a voucher for $1,000 and the minimum apartment they can get is $1,400, they're not allowed to go above a certain
Right.
amount beyond. They can't pay that additional.
The program,
So
the program sets.
So they can't pay the additional $400 out of pocket?
It's something like,
Right.
Yeah, I see.
and the thing is, like, you have, in some markets, you don't have anything that's affordable at all.
So the vouchers aren't keeping up with the rent increases?
I mean,
so
they do rent increases, but,
They haven't kept up.
Right,
not the way we would like them.
right. And particularly in a market like this,
Right.
yeah.
I don't know that this is exactly a question for you, Rachel, but do we have a sense of the amount of vacancies there are in the city of Beacon? I don't know if I'm asking you.
We haven't done any studies.
Okay.
You would have to pay to do a study, and then the other thing is the data accurate that you get, because I can't force somebody to respond to a study. So you sometimes get kind of skewed data.
I mean, what I will say, Justice, is that the person who is going to be coming to my office, very likely to take that position that I talked about before, part of what she's going to be doing is, and she has done in other communities, is really like going through the community and really finding pockets and finding, getting all of the applications, finding out, where affordable housing is, helping people. Sometimes it's just the overwhelming task of looking and trying to figure out where to go and what's affordable and what the transportation is potentially to work, and figuring all of that out. So I think Patience is very excited that we're going to be having that role in our office. We used to many years ago, and it was a great service to our attorneys who were working with tenants, and I was very excited, as I think Patience is, to have that role back in our office.
If you were to do like a Know Your Rights thing here as like an opening presentation for council, would that be something that tenants could attend and ask questions?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we do it all the time. One of my attorneys who does most of the city of Poughkeepsie eviction cases is doing it, I think, tomorrow night with Community Voices Heard with Eli, who I think you all know. I think many of you have met Justin Haynes, who's my supervising attorney. He did one Saturday morning. And we go to where communities want us to go. We've gone to churches, we go to city centers. So we're happy to do it here, but we're also happy to do it at, I've always wanted to do something over at the Beacon Rec Center. I think that would be great. We do it evenings, we've done things on the weekends, so that is something we are happy to do, and we certainly have the resources for that. And we like to partner with Community Voices Heard because we play different roles, and I think we're a good partnership.
The cases that we've been talking about tonight, they only represent the ones that have come through your office or requested your services.
Right.
There may have been many other eviction proceedings that you may not have been involved in. Is that possible?
We know how many there are, right? Because I gave you the statistics.
So that was all,
that was total.
all of the
That was
evictions?
total.
Okay, I understood.
There's been 52 since the contract started, 59 this year. Summary proceedings started.
So that doesn't represent just the ones you covered. That's
No,
total.
That's
Okay.
and that's what I was saying is public
I got it.
information.
Right.
So if you as a city council want to, keep on top of how many eviction cases are happening in this period of time, if you want to look and see, okay, let's take a similarly situated city with about the same population size, you can look at the tenant dashboard and get that information. We know how many cases, what kinds of cases in those two categories. We know how many warrants. That's not just legal services data, that's the Office of Court Administration who collects this data, who oversees the judges here.
Other stuff? Because we probably should wrap up pretty soon.
I was just curious, going back to this question of, people you can't afford to represent. Do you know, and I know this is outside maybe your knowledge of, I was just seeing that New York City has initiated their own right to counsel program within the boundaries of New York City for residents there. Do you know of anything outside of New York City that's taken shape like that? Anything, Dutchess or Westchester, any of the places that you also work in?
So I think we did share this in an initial meeting, that we do have a program in Yonkers where they are interested in right to counsel, and so we do have dedicated attorneys who are focused on that court, and we're funded to do that. So there is, I think, interest in this. So yes, we have seen that.
Okay, great, thank you.
And under the contract, there are 8 reporting requirements per quarter. We haven't seen any reports yet from legal services, but maybe as a follow-up to this meeting, you can send that on to us with what you've done based on what's required in the contract, and then we'll distribute that to all of the council. And that has much more data than you just got.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was
Thank
very
you.
informative.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is Accessory Apartments. Who's going to pick that one up?
Just quickly, Lee, if I can interject, can I make a motion to take the Fishkill Creek and Green infrastructure off the agenda tonight, just because this took a little long? We still have a second meeting, and I only shared materials with the group today.
Okay.
And Lee, I think there was a mix-up on my part that it probably was supposed to be on the 15th, and we ended up putting it on the 1st. So my apology for that. And we'll have it ready for the 15th with
Okay.
more backup.
All right. So that means item 5 will just come off and we'll pick it up next time, but I want to start up on item 4, all right? So I think on accessory apartments, there's one new piece of information, or is it 2?
You have a memo from the planning department.
Right.
If you remember, we last referred this to our City of Beacon Planning Department, asking for their opinion specifically on the exclusion of smaller lots. And they came back with the memo that's in your packet. And Nick is on, and John Clark is on, if you have any, if either or both of them have anything on this.
Okay. Yeah, so from what I could see, the planning board basically said they did not support limiting the accessory apartments and not allowing them in R15s and R175. So R15 is a 50 by 100 foot lot, so one of the lots you'd see near Main Street. And then an R175 is the single family lot, that's about 75 by 100 instead of 50 by 100, so about half again larger. And again, obviously, they're not always exactly that size in terms of the dimensions, but that's the square footage, right? And so I guess their reasoning was that that they thought that they should allow them in those areas, and that there were setbacks that made sense in those areas, and they'd still have to be met. And so some of them wouldn't be allowed where the setbacks don't work, as opposed to kind of not allowing them in the entire districts. And then they also said they were supportive of waiving the parking requirement, that allowing the planning board to waive the parking requirement, which would be a case-by-case situation. They were supportive of allowing that. I think those are the 2 items that I just want to make sure the public could hear what the planning board was saying.
This might be a question for John Clark, but do we know how much of the zoning is R5 or R75? I know that most of it is R, but I didn't know how much of those 2 in particular we have. I don't know if you have
I don't have a breakdown on the percentage of the city that is R, but it's a large percentage is R1 and R7.5. All the land north and south of Main Street in that immediate area is R5 for the most part. So it takes up a good chunk of the city.
Yeah, I would say, just mirroring what John's saying, figure like Verplank to Main Street on the one side, and then Main Street to Wolcott in that section. It may not be as far as south as Wolcott, may more be like West Center, but those tend to be, between those 2 tend to be R15 or some R175. They get bigger when you go up the Tree Streets or south of Wolcott. I'm just trying to remember, Mount Beacon Park is more of an R175, John? Not an R15, maybe even R110, I'm not sure. But you can get a sense of, yeah, the closer in to Main Street are the ones that tend to be smaller, right?
Yeah, basically north of Verplank, and then farther out to Memorial Park is R5, and then on the south side, down, a block or 2 south of Walcott.
And I think, as they said in their memo, there's currently one they were reviewing or have reviewed recently that is one of those 2 that's in Ward 1 that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. They just,
did they approve it? I don't know if they
I
did or
think they
not.
did approve it.
Yes.
Okay,
Last
great.
month.
Okay, great, thank you.
And there's a new, so there's 10 now that have come in. There's a new one being reviewed by the planning board right now. It's in an existing house, so there's no changes to the exterior other than an additional parking space. So they're reviewing that on Beacon Street right now.
So procedurally, the next step would be to consideration of scheduling the local law for a public hearing, which you could schedule for your August 15th meeting. It does not need to be referred back to the city planning board because they've given you 2 opinions already that were received and reviewed in its most recent format. It would need to go to Dutchess County one more time just for review. Dutchess County did previously comment favorably on a prior draft of the local law.
We still have some aspects of this law to discuss yet. We've talked about dimensions, but that's the only the only thing so far, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you can still have your public hearing and make minor
Okay.
adjustments to the law. And that way I don't think we've had public comment during this council. We did with the prior council.
Yeah, that was my only question, and I don't have a strong opinion either way. If we did have a public hearing, would we want to wait until September? Is August a time when people, I know that last time it came up for the previous council, there was a lot of interest in it, so I didn't know if the public would prefer to wait, or because they already said a lot and are already aware that there's not a need to delay if we did want to have a public hearing. It was a question I had. I don't actually have a strong opinion either way.
Well, the other thing you could do is open it up, and then you might choose to leave it open, too.
Oh, that's true, too. We don't have to close it.
So just to remind everyone, the way this is written now, the R15 and R175 are still permitted in this draft? Okay. Are there things that we would want to discuss that people have that we'd like to get into this law, or are we ready to just start hearing what the public has to say and then go back and have a look at what we've got?
I think there's more that we want to do, but I also am fine with hearing from the public now.
Yeah, I'm similarly open to opening it up to the public, but will say that one of the items I anticipate us hearing about from the public is to what extent and in what ways this addresses our affordable housing needs. It, from what I understand, addresses it obliquely but not acutely, and I anticipate that being a continued point of conversation.
Okay.
And I guess I'd like the public to know, and I'm not sure where in here, except for just as of sort of a matter of course, is how do we enforce this, and how do we keep it from being, were we to pass this, how do we keep it from being abused as Airbnb? How is it monitored? I know that's sort of based in there, but are we, I think I would feel a lot more comfortable if I felt like the building department or whoever enforces it is prepared if there's the number of these things do increase, that there is an ability to monitor it on a regular basis.
We are just starting the STR monitoring program. We've had a slow start on that. The staff who was assigned to that had COVID for 2 weeks and is trying to get to the point where we get that going.
No, but I thought what we had heard was that that program would be able to check, 40-some sites for rentals, and importantly, that would be evidence of, sufficient evidence to demonstrate a short-term rental at a site. So that plus, is it owner-occupied, is sort of all we need to know the way the law is now set up. So I think we've got it right. Obviously, we want to see that it works, but I think that would be good. The first, if we pass this law tomorrow, it would be 6 months before an accessory apartment would come out of it, right? Because you got to get through the planning process and then actually construct the unit. So I don't think it should be a problem, unless you think it's dead in the water. But you're just saying it's a little slow to start up. It's not that it won't.
No, I don't think it's dead in the water at all. I just think we're going to need a little more time to get it moving.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I just want the public to be assured that we will have the ability and things will be in place for us to monitor these appropriately.
I believe that to be so.
Yeah.
So if we want to set it up for public hearing, would that be on the 15th of August, or would it be on what's the week after Labor Day? That would be the
It would be the 6th.
or the 6th of September. What do we think?
Give it a run on the 15th, see what happens.
Yeah.
All right, we're okay to try to start it up on the 15th? Okay. So that would say we need either Nick or our planner or both to be around to kind of talk through publicly what's in it so people are aware what they want to talk about. As long as one of you, I think, is it John that would be the primary presenter, or is it Nick?
I think Nick would probably be the primary, and then John if questions come up about, like, the zoning question that just came up.
Okay.
But Nick,
I'm available when we have that meeting.
All right, good. All right, so that sounds like a plan. And, you know, again, we're not solving everything. We're just starting up the public hearing. There may be bits that we go back and forth on, right? Okay. We good to go on?
Yeah.
All right. So 5, Fishkill Creek Green and Green Infrastructure, we're holding. We just got the information. We'll pick it up on the 15th. And then 6 is just appointing Thomas Wright to the CAC. And I received an application. I also received a request of the committee. I'm certainly fine with that. My only concern of Mr. Wright is that he volunteers a lot of his time, and I'm very appreciative.
Sure. But it's a logical fit for
Yeah,
sure
it
as
is.
well.
Totally.
Right.
I actually thought he was already on the CAC.
Yeah, no.
I was like,
So did he.
so-
He's certainly been at every meeting. for the
He's
last
really
while.
active,
Yeah.
so we might as well just formalize it.
Okay, so we're okay with that? We'll pick it up in the formal meeting, if that's all right. The next one is.
I have one procedural thing. I mean, his resume in particular was not included, and as we say, we all know him as something, but I just wanted to check, was that because we know him? Because I know we got into the habit of adding them every time, so.
No, it's just an oversight, should be in there.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Right? Maybe the man behind the curtain will flip it to us in the next, before this, the
He
end of the.
tried to sneak by something else that was
yeah,
like 1.5
exactly.
million without any number behind it, so.
All right. So item 7 is the agreement.
Trying to
with
keep
the-
you on your toes, Molly, you know.
The Palumbo Group. That's the construction management firm that's going to provide the construction management services for the firehouse renovation project. So Chris, you want to tell us some more about that? You sorted this one?
Sure. We are going to be renovating the Tompkins Hose Firehouse, as you know. We put it in the capital plan. It is part of the 15-year consolidation from 3 firehouses to 1. We hope to be breaking ground on the firehouse project next March or April, and we're in the design phase now. A couple of things, we had initially talked about having a clerk of the works that would be part-time. In that discussion, it came out that we really should be doing a full-time construction management firm. So after that conversation, I went out and I spoke to 3 firms, the Palumbo Group, Eris Construction, and Calgate Construction, who are all centered in our area and very familiar with market conditions and with the people that normally bid and do these projects. The Palumbo Group gave us the best proposal. I have also worked with the Palumbo Group on a $8 million project in Kingston that went very well. So I have a level of familiarity and comfort with the principal Lou Rodriguez. And so the contract would be for $383,387. It includes a phase where they participate in the design. So they're going to help look at value engineering opportunities. They're going to help the architect think about phasing the project and bidding, how we break down the bid so that we get the best price, we get the best quality, and we get through the project as quickly as possible. The less time it takes us to construct this, the less it will cost. So we've already included him in some initial conversations, and he's already brought incredible value to those discussions about how to break down the work into various bids. So we'd like to bring that contract to you tonight and then get him going 2 weeks ago.
It was a really impressive contract. I mean, $500 million in projects, and some of the projects they detailed that came in under budget and on time were just massive.
Yeah.
So really,
and I know, I live in New Paltz, and he just did the New Paltz Firehouse, and it just went very well. And he also did the firehouse in Poughkeepsie. So he's done a spade of public projects, K through 12 projects. In the case of the project we did, it was a community college project. So he's very, very knowledgeable about Wick's law, which requires that we bid this broken down by trades. And people know him. He's a known entity, so that I think we'll get more people bidding on the project because they know there's not a lot of drama on these projects.
I saw they were recommending that Beacon get an owner's rep as well in in this project?
Well, I'll be the owner's rep,
That's what I thought.
and also John Russo, our city engineer, has been working with me so that he can keep an eye on the civil aspects, the civil design aspects of the outside.
Good.
So John Russo's been on my team. Gary, our fire chief, is there for any of the firematic questions, and then we have already included Lou in his first discussion, and again, I think he's ready to hit the ground running.
That's awesome. Do we know what's realistic in terms of LEED certification at this point, or is it too early to kind of set a realistic goal of any kind for that?
It isn't in the scope of work for the architect. We are trying to. Sometimes you can have a greener building that's not LEED certified. Like, so LEED is one specific program that awards points for a variety of things. Like if you have bike lockers or something, you get points for that. Or you use a company that recycles some of the demolition materials. It doesn't mean, though, that you have the best firehouse. So again, we can look at the opportunity to do LEED, but the primary things we're looking for are durability, so that this building lasts 100 years, and the materials that are, and the energy and the resources imputed into that building last, and that it's energy efficient. So we're exploring, you'll see starting tomorrow, they're laying out some test wells in the parking lot next door, because we are looking to do an array of geothermal heat pumps. And again, the building will be all electric, super insulated. So, am I going to have every little, sometimes you look at those LEED lists and you're like, I can't believe they gave 2 points for that.
Right.
So I'd really rather not, if we can get there, yeah, but I want to focus on the big stuff that actually matters in terms of environmental impact. So.
For sure.
Do you
And
know,
reusing a building.
Pretty
We're
good,
also,
right?
yeah, we're also reusing the
Yeah.
10,000 square foot building that's there to the extent possible.
do you know when the New Paltz Firehouse was completed, roughly?
It's closing out right now.
Closing
So
out
they
right
just
now.
finished it, and I think they had, I think they did a ceremony for it a couple weeks ago. But they're in the closeout phase, so they're running through, they're getting all of the as-built, they're making sure that all of the paperwork is in alignment. But it's beautiful if you just go up the thruway and it's right off the thruway.
Yeah, one of the questions that I had is more of a curiosity, was looking at the dates of all these tens of millions of dollars of projects, as Ren was saying, is that there seems to be a gap in completion. There's nothing after 2015 to now, and I get part of that is probably COVID related, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff they're working on right now. So I had a curiosity about the reason for that gap, and knowing, they're a small enough company that there might have been staffing changes or things like that, and just wanting to make sure that
Well,
they're...
I don't think he put every project in that he's done. I think when they do these proposals, they're looking at the most relevant projects to what we've done. So I know they finished the firehouse in New Paltz, and I know that went really well. And they're not that small. One of the things you had asked me is to look for a firm that had a bench. So if like one person goes down, that's not the only person. The company is 40 people at this point. So the lead project manager who's proposed for this, Tom, and I've forgotten his last name, but it's in the proposal. He just finished the firehouse in New Paltz, so he's ready to move over now. But I know they've been doing projects. They didn't take a break.
Okay. So we're okay with that? And any other questions? We can also talk about the next one, which is the agreement with Core and Main for the water meter upgrades. Will you just give us a summary, Chris?
Sure. So the project is an upgrade of all of the water meters, the residential water meters throughout the city. It's a project that was approved in the 2020 capital budget, and because of COVID, we didn't move forward with implementing it, and now we're trying to queue it up. The contract is for $1,525,272, and it's with Core and Main LP. And basically what they're doing is, they're the company that have provided the water meters that we already have. We're replacing the item that's called an MXU. It's what communicates the reading from the meter to, currently it goes to, we drive around in a truck and it goes to a laptop. This will then, instead of having somebody drive around, once every 3 months to get these readings, this new MXU unit will be transmitting to antenna on our water tanks that then go to the cloud, and we'll be able to look in real time at water usage. And so the goal here is to streamline our billing, but also to prevent one of the things that's hardest for us is when somebody has a significant leak and we don't find out for 1, 2, or 3 months, and they come back and they're angry at us because they have a $3,000 bill. And we've actually had circumstances where somebody left for the winter, had a leak, and didn't find out. And not only did they get charged for all the water going through the meter from the broken pipe, but it destroyed their basement or destroyed, other things in their house. So what this does is it provides both the city and the residential customer with real-time data about their water usage, and it allows us to do alerts. So we had, our superintendent of water and sewers has spoken on this on a couple occasions. We're now just proposing to move forward with the contract, which is on your agenda for later tonight. But we're excited about it. One of the worst calls I get is when somebody has one of these large bills, and there's honestly very little you can do about it because they use the water. It went through their meter. And if we have an alert, we can call somebody and say, hey, your water just spiked at 10 times what you normally use. You have a leak, we think.
Sort of related to that, if people are able to check real time, I'm under the assumption, and maybe I'm misunderstanding how it works, but if someone were to check, late on a Friday afternoon and then all of a sudden call the city, they might not get a response until Monday, and then they might get frustrated that they're liable for the water over the weekend. I know the staff doesn't work on the weekend, so I'm wondering if that's a possibility, if there's a way that we can set up expectations so that, yes, people can check whenever they want, which is great, but also we're not going to provide 24/7 response to those kinds of things.
But again, now it's not just waiting 2 days, it's waiting 2 months.
Right. Yeah.
So it would be limited. If it was bad enough, if there was a broken pipe and it was flooding somebody's basement and they called the police, I'm guessing our water department would come in and try to address it, and they have in the past.
Okay. Maybe that's something I'm using out loud. I'm curious to hear from the water department when this goes live, how many people they get who expect them to be available 24/7 because people are checking 24/7.
Yeah, I don't think that's the usual concern. The big ones that were causing grief is like the external meter, which is what we read, wasn't communicating to the internal meter effectively.
Okay.
And so it was like, it wasn't just 2 or 3 months, it was 6 and 10 and whatever months where the reading is way low than the actual, and then it catches up. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, holy cow. So I don't think a weekend is going to be a problem.
Yeah, it's not going to.
Right. But we can certainly set the expectation, but I don't think that's going to be our concern.
Okay, great.
And they're excited about it too. So the implementation, again, Ed talked a little bit about it, and Cora Main talked a little bit about it. If we pass the contract, it will be about a 2-year project. And they will put out letters and announcements on working with the city and using our letterhead, letting people know when we need to get in, scheduling this. But it's a lot of work. It's over 4,000 meters. So we expect about 24 months minimum.
Okay. Any questions? Again, we'll hear it again at the approval session. So we're just determining any questions before we move it forward for approval. The last 3, I guess we can cover them together because, Nick, you're going to take us through them. 2 of them are bond authorizations, one for Melzinger, the dam, and then one for the firehouse renovations. Those are 2 bond authorizations, and the third one is repealing some bond authorizations that were previously adopted and are now done. So you want to kind of summarize that? Is that Nick?
Yeah, let me give a quick summary, and then I'll let Nick
Sure.
dive into details. So the reason that you have two bond authorizations to approve is that in the 2023 to 2027 capital program, there were two major items that we weren't just going to use our fund balance for. So it was the firehouse at over $10 million, and it was Melzinger at 2.9, what are we at? 2.9, yes. The repeal is basically housekeeping. So we did authorizations years ago, the scope of work changed, the amount, the cost of it changed, or we didn't finish all of the projects. We decided there was something better to do. So what Susan Tucker, our finance director, did is go through and look at all of the unexpended funds, and then we're going to close those out. So it's kind of like closing out a credit card that you haven't used in a while that's holding up your available credit. So then I'll let Nick talk about, you'll see some environmental work in this, and I want him to explain that piece.
Thank you, Chris. Mayor, so the first resolution is for borrowing of up to $2,900,000 to be used towards the reconstruction of improvements to the Melzinger Dam. And the resolution sets forth a couple of requirements. One is noting that it's subject to a permissive referendum. The other is the use of the funds. And one of the required items is also the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Will this have an impact on the environment? This is considered a type 2 action exempt from secret review because the issuance of the bonds are being used to repair and maintain the existing structure of the dam. So the DEC regulations have a specific exemption. And these bond resolutions were prepared by your bond counsel, reviewed by our office as well as Susan Tucker. And you'll see the various sections go to some legalese with respect to the use of the funds and how these bonds will be issued. The second bond is for the, I'm sorry, I'm just opening that up, is for the firehouse renovations, but that includes an additional construction. So for secret purposes, the project includes construction of new square footage of over 4,000 square feet. So it is subject to secret as an unlisted action, and that's why you'll find in your agenda packet the environmental assessment form, parts 1 and 2, and we've prepared what's called the negative declaration, finding that the construction of the improvements as well as the additional work being done within the existing building will not have a significant adverse environmental impact. Remember, this project is building on the existing lot, so you're not disturbing trees and large areas that have not been already disturbed. You have existing water and sewer. Character of the neighborhood's not changing because it's already a fire station. And so the secret impacts do not rise to the level that an environmental impact statement needs to be prepared. And that's why the resolution proposes a negative declaration. And again, the same boilerplate language in the bond concerning the issuance of the funds, what were to be used for, and subject to a permissive referendum period. And then the third one, Chris explained, is the repeal of previously adopted bond authorizations, and that does not have a secret component to it. All three of them are to be voted on separately. Happy to answer any questions.
Was Melzinger less than we thought it was going to be back when Ed presented way back in March? I remember writing down 3.9, but because of concrete.
I know that we changed the design of the Mount Beacon Reservoir work to do less concrete in the front because we had a larger, like when the bids came in, it was about $1 million over. So I'm wondering if that might be what you're talking about. I don't know that the 2.9 has changed.
Okay.
I think that's what I've known it to be since I got here. Yeah. And again, that's an estimate. So like if it's 2.9 and $50,000, we wouldn't go back and change the bond authorization. We'd just use a little bit of fund balance to make up that difference. But we need to have the bulk of it ready to go on a bond.
And the one question I had is, the repeal totals what amount?
The repeal totals to $2,444,812, $2.4 million.
Right.
And it's 4 projects from anywhere from 2015 to, I think, 2018, 2019.
And it's just because the projects came in under budget, or we didn't fully need the money we requested?
It depends. It was mostly scope changes to the project. So like, they might have anticipated starting out doing something with the sewer improvements, and then they ended up doing something, or they decided not to do it at that time. So these authorizations sometimes aren't fully utilized. In other cases, we got money, like with the fire truck. We got money back from the sale of our fire truck. We did really well on that. And then we got a grant from Assemblyman Jacobson that helped defray the local cost.
I have a question from the short environmental assessment form. I was just looking through it, and it says that it has a question about does the site contain any species of animals or associated habitats listed by the state or the feds as threatened or endangered? And apparently Atlantic sturgeon and short-nose show up. Is that because it's in the watershed? I assume there aren't any of those underground in the site. Is that?
That is correct. So the DEC requires that you use their environmental mapper, and that mapper spreads, casts a wide net part of the pond. And
You had to do that.
I wasn't fishing for compliments, no.
Oh, my goodness.
Get this guy out of here.
Cut his mic, Ben. Cut his mic.
So that is why that is in there. But so we have to identify it, but it's clearly not associated with any disturbance on the top proposed lot itself. And so thus that supports the negative declaration that there won't be any impacts.
I just want to know, I have to go through this twice a week on my calls with Nick. The pun contests are relentless.
Well, you're good at it also.
Well, I'm not going to start now. And we added the bats too. You have at least one species of bat. But again, it's a disturbed site already, so it's really hard to argue that we're doing anything that's not more environmental. You're making the building a lot more efficient than it was, and reusing a brownfield site, essentially.
Okay, we good?
Yeah, and I if Ben will let me share my screen, I just would, as we're talking about these large capital projects, I'd love to just show you quickly a photo of what the pocket dam looks like. The pocket should be able to. Thanks, Ben. Now I just have to figure out how the heck do it. So the pocket dam in Mount Beacon are something that you've already approved, and this is a photo of what it looks like this week. So the whole face of the dam has been taken off. That's rebar that's been set up to receive new concrete. This is our smallest dam, which is at the bottom of the creek that emanates out of Mount Beacon. So this will be done this year, and then Mount Beacon will be done the following year. So if you go up, let me see if I can grab the other one quick. Ben is much more adept at this than I am. Yeah, I don't know where the other, it's just the other side, and it looks essentially the same. But if you take a walk up to the pocket, you can see the progress, and it's exciting. That's moved along a lot faster than we thought it would. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Ben.
Okay, are we ready to shift to regular meeting? We okay?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Do we need a motion?
Nope,
Do
because we opened
no,
the
'cause
meeting.
we already opened.
Yeah. So, since we've opened the meeting, and
You
we've
have
done the
public comment.
pledge, we'll do public comment, right? So now, we're back to the official meeting, and this is the first opportunity for public comments. If anyone in the real audience would like to speak, now is the time.
Mayor, I can bring up this hand right now.
Good evening, Teresa Kraft, Beacon. As a resident, I'd like to see a moratorium on accessory dwelling units throughout the city of Beacon, regardless of what zoning district they are located in. In the recent past, the city planner stated that there were only a small handful of requests in the last few years, but anyone with eyes can see that in the last few months there has been a large uptick in the number of applications submitted, and even more troubling are the many that don't go through the city channels. Perhaps it could be a double moratorium and put a hold on short-term rentals. The influx of rolling luggage and Ubers in every neighborhood is a red flag. Let's follow what's going on down in Cold Spring and in the other Hudson River cities and municipalities. We're seeing so many shovels in the ground with large development projects coming to fruition. I'd like the city to revisit the percentage of affordable units to the total of the overall development unit count. Reading how a project is all about helping the apartment shortage by supplying 25 units in a project that has over 250 units seems unbalanced. I'm sure I'm not the only one looking, but I'd like to see more attachments included in the agendas, regardless if it's a workshop. In reviewing tonight's workshop packet, the segment regarding Fishkill Creek and the green infrastructure, there were no supporting documents. I heard you take it off tonight's agenda because it came just recent, but this is also seen in other agendas at other meetings. And the Fishkill Creek and the green infrastructure is a hot topic in Beacon, so we'll be following. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone in the virtual environment want to make a public comment?
If you're on Zoom and you'd like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand option at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're on a phone, you can press *9. If you're watching on YouTube, you will need to join the Zoom by visiting beaconny.com. And right now we have no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, so let's do reports. Which way do we want to start? Dan, you want to start up and we'll work our way around?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Just one thing for me that I just want to say thank you and congratulations to Joe Pimentel, to the We Play Community Project, to the Beacon Rec Department, and all the children and all the parents who got in on painting the bathroom, the shed in Green Street Park. It looks beautiful. It was kind of a dark, cruddy corner of Green Street Park, that area, and now it's kind of the jewel of the park. And I just think it looks fantastic. And thanks, Chris, also for everything you did to make that happen.
My pleasure.
And just a quick note, I hope everybody's enjoying their summer. I will not be having office hours for Ward 4 in the month of August. I'll be out of town soon, but I will resume office hours in September.
So I'm excited to report that over 10,000 pounds of compost has been collected, and I certainly enjoy every time I go and drop mine off. There's at least one neighbor there asking for more information, and they love to hear that this pilot is launching and the city is sponsoring it. Another good thing to remember, this is from the CAC, is that New York State is launching an old paint recycling program. So you can drop off your paint for free at 5-gallon limit per customer per trip. And there are a whole bunch of locations. The one closest to me is, I think, Sherwin-Williams in Wappingers. But you can find the full list at paintcare.org. And my office hours continue if you would like to schedule with me. I'm around Wednesdays. And that's all. Thanks, y'all.
I would just like to thank all of the people who have been planning and hosting community events this summer. I had the pleasure of going to the annual barbecue at Loopers last week, as well as a picnic hosted by Mutually Beacon and the Elks Club. And I just really appreciate all of these spaces for community to gather and talk to each other. Thanks.
Nothing significant to report this week, thanks.
All right. Hi, just a couple of things. I've got a couple of complaints just about noise in neighborhoods, particularly in evenings. So I just want to ask people to be mindful. If you're having parties late at night, just be mindful of your neighbors. And there's been, I don't know if this has been an increase or what, but I've been hearing a lot of loud bikes in the evening, and a lot of other of my neighbors have as well, like loud motorcycles and whatnot. And I don't know if there's anything we could do about it per se. I don't know if that's happening. I don't know if that's residents of Beacon or people who are just driving through. But if you do live in Beacon, just please keep in mind that at night people do need sleep, and just be mindful of your neighbors is something that I would ask. Another thing I would like to mention is that, Chris, would it be possible, somebody was telling me, some neighbors on Dennings Avenue were talking about how there used to be a slow children sign there, and there's not one anymore, and they were wondering if that could get back there, and so maybe that's something that we could look into. And I also want to encourage people to download the Dutchess County Public Transportation app. You can type in DCPT in the App Store or Google Play Store, and it has the buses, the public transportation in real time. You can track them as they're going. So if you want to catch the free loop but you don't know where it is, you can see where it is in real time, and I think that's really amazing. Yeah, no, it's really wonderful, especially when things aren't running on time. Do you want to know if you missed it or if it's late? Check the app. So again, you can just type in DCPT in the App Store or Google Play Store or Dutchess County Public Transportation. It's a really good app to just have. And another thing, I want to congratulate the Howland for 150 years. Their celebration is August 5th at 5 p.m. at the Howland Cultural Center. If you have the opportunity to go, I really encourage you to do so. And I've also just, over the past couple of months, seen a lot of fires in the area, especially in my ward, and I'm wondering if maybe the fire department could do some sort of fire safety presentation, maybe at the council or somewhere else. I think that might be really helpful or beneficial, Chris. And lastly, I don't know that I have office hours. I don't have office hours yet this month. However, you can book an appointment with me, whether it's coffee or a Zoom meeting or a phone call. If you go to my website, it's linktree/Justice McCrae. So it's linktr.ee/Justice McCrae. And you could also sign up to my newsletter and find other helpful links there. And that is all I have today. Thank you.
Thanks, Justice. As was mentioned by a member of the public, that there is a bunch of construction going on the west side of Ward 1, so that's everything that is to the west of North Avenue, Wolcott, and 9D. There's a couple of projects that are either about to break ground or are in the works, and I just wanted to name that I really appreciate that the city is already thinking holistically about any potential traffic impacts in that area as well, and there are a couple of things I know that are in the works that I really value, and I wanted to bring it up here as well, because if you are a resident over there, or if you use that area over there and have any of your own traffic concerns or things that you've experienced, now would be a great time to bring it up as we're thinking as a city about how we want to plan for the future. So if you're interested in getting involved in that and putting your 2 cents in, it would be well timed around now. Even if these projects take many months and years to go in, we want to try to get ahead of that as best as possible. Similar to others, I will not be having office hours in August, and I will return in September with those. And lastly, I got a chance to use the local Beacon pool this weekend, which was fabulous, and I hope those of you who want to take advantage of it. And just a reminder that what they're doing this year is, if you want to use it, you need to register in advance, so you can find the information on the website about accessing it, just so you don't make plans and turn up and then have to adjust your plans last minute. And Chris, I'll turn it over to you. Oh, no, sorry, back to Lee first.
Okay, that's okay, I'll be quick. Just a couple of things. There was a groundbreaking at the Edgewater site, as Molly mentioned. So we had that. That's the one that was mentioned. That's 240-some units, including 25 units of affordable. It's actually supported financially by the Community Preservation Corporation, which has been instrumental in, almost every one of our major projects in terms of renovating in Beacon over the years, and we're just very appreciative of their support, along with Orange Bank and Trust and Salisbury Bank. Saturday was Employee Appreciation Day. We actually tried that for the first time in Beacon. Chris will probably tell you more, but the food was really good. Had a lot left over. Somehow baklava appeared, and a good time was had by all. And I'm just always appreciative of how hard our employees have worked. I will say it feels different sitting in this seat. I feel a lot of just appreciation of how hard everyone has to work. And we all think it happens and don't even notice, and they're out there doing the job every day in every apartment. So I'm just very appreciative. The last thing I just want to mention is that we had a meeting. It was Chris, myself, and Gary Van Voorhis, the chief. We met with some of the senior folks at the Lewis Tompkins Hose Volunteer Company, and we talked through the project for the renovation of the Lewis Tompkins Hose Firehouse into our central station. And I heard some just really good ideas and thoughts and questions, and I'm just very appreciative to how much work over 100 years the volunteers at Lewis Tompkins Hose have provided, and all three fire companies have provided to the city in their volunteer times, and we will find ways of honoring that, some of which will appear in the building. So I just wanted to note that, and that's all I got. Chris.
So I wanted to echo Dan's comments about Green Street Park, and now that I've learned how to share screen, I wanted to show a photo. Oh, it's on mine. There it is.
Oh, so pretty.
So this is what the new bathroom looks like, and I just want to thank all of the volunteers that participated in this. And again, kudos to Mark Price and our Recreation Department for thinking of this and making it happen. And all right, now I'm going to stop sharing if I can figure out how to do that. I wanted to announce that we received a municipal investment grant from Dutchess County in the amount of nearly $90,000 for self-contained breathing apparatus, or SBA gear, for our fire department. I also want to thank the Dutchess County Transportation Council. We were short on our funds for the Fishkill Avenue, Teller Avenue project that I'm just finishing right away on and hoping to get to bid next year. And we had a gap of about $1.8 million in that $9 million project. And last week they informed me that they had moved money onto the Transportation Improvement Program to cover that deficit. So that really, again, I really appreciate the leadership of the county on that. And the last thing I have is that I did want to mention, I wanted to thank Mark for a great Employee Appreciation Day. Our rec department really shines when they do things like that, and I wanted to appreciate the members of the council that came and all the employees, and I hope that we can do it again, and we might have to change a few things, but hopefully more employees will come each year and we can really let them know how valued they are. And that's all I have.
Okay, let's start up on our local laws and resolutions. 7 items, and the first one is approving Thomas Wright to the appointment of the Conservation Advisory Committee. If I can get a motion and a second.
Motion. Second.
That sounded like Wren and Paloma, or Paloma and Wren?
Wren and Paloma.
Wren and Paloma.
Sure.
All right, it was like almost instant. Okay.
Very excited.
Any discussion? In the absence of a resume, I will still ask for a vote, unless we got one in the last.
We don't, and Thomas didn't have one readily. So,
okay.
So.
All right. But all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. So that approved unanimously. The second one The next couple ones are authorizing the city administrator. The first one is to execute an agreement with the Palumbo Group, which is for construction management services for the central fire station. I need a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second.
All right, and that was Molly and Dan. And Chris, the dollar amount involved?
$383,387.
Okay. And I will just say that I still learn things. This is the first time that the city is not using a clerk of the works approach, and I think of a project this size, I think this is absolutely right. Given this represents 3 to 4% of the total budget, and I've already heard things that will be hopefully be translated into cost savings. I think the clerk of the works is probably around half this, but I actually think the level of professionalism is really appropriate for a large project. Things as basic as, do we do all the construction at once and reduce the time frame down? I heard a proposal of going from 14 months to 10 if we were able to find different locations for the fire trucks and just do it all at once, as opposed to the original idea of first we build the new bays, then we move the trucks into those bays, and then we work on the building. Those, I think, will pay for themselves. So I'm not even sure that's the right one, but that was the one I heard that I thought those are interesting things. So I just wanted to mention that. Any other comments? All right, so are we okay to vote on this one? So all in favor on these, Nick, are voice votes, or do you need roll calls?
Everything's a voice vote.
Everything
Yeah.
is a voice vote.
Okay, just confirming. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, so that was approved unanimously. The third one is the authorizing of the city administrator executing agreement with Core and Maine, and that's for the water meter upgrades. And I need a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second. That was Dan and George, I believe. Any discussion, the dollar amount, Chris, of this one?
This is 2 million. No, I'm sorry.
One.
$1,525,272.
So about one.
But if you round it up, it'd actually be 2 million.
From 1.52. Right. Okay.
I'm not voting on 2 million, just to be clear to the public.
That's how you get extra that we have to then remove in item 6, right?
Correct.
So any discussion on that?
Chris, can you just remind the public where that money is coming from? That's coming from existing water funds that we have, the 1.5 million?
Yeah, it comes from the water fund, and it would be out of bonds, and some of it from the fund balance. So each fund, the general fund, the water fund, and the sewer fund, we have a savings account there, and I think what Susan had proposed to do on this is mostly from the fund balance, because we have a pretty healthy fund balance.
In the water
In the water fund.
fund.
Yeah.
Right, so we have to keep a separate fund balance for water, sewer, and then the general fund, right? Right, and when you do bonding in the water and sewer, it's the fees that are coming in that support those bonds, as opposed to our general bonds, like for the firehouse, there aren't any fees associated with it. So that's sort of a general obligation as opposed to a revenue bond, if I've got the terms right. Nick will probably correct me right now.
No, that's all correct.
Okay, shock. Okay. Any other discussion on that? So let's come up with a vote. All in favor on executing agreement with Core and Maine for water meter upgrades, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. So the next one is authorizing bond issuance for the Melzinger Reservoir Dam, and I'm looking for a motion in a second.
Motion.
Second.
So that's Ren and Dan. And the dollar amount here is up to 2.9 million. Do I have that one right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Any discussion on that? Okay. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? These are really important projects, and I'm just,
It's a big meeting.
yeah, I know. This is great because I've just observed we were chipping away at this for years and years and years, and water and sewer came because of George. No,
That's context,
Not
Lee.
sewage, just sewers.
yeah, but because, well, George was raising issues about the time that someone also got involved and let us know that we had to do a bunch of changes with our stormwater and sewer. And that was a pretty hefty bill, and now we're doing the water piece. And I think really this just sets us up for a long time. I'm just really impressed at the ability to just kind of keep having at it a little bit at a time. The roads are exactly the same. You know, we can't possibly afford to redo roads. The milling and paving component that we do, if you go to another large city in the valley, I won't call anyone names, but look at the roads and be careful when you're driving, right? So we've done a lot. We've got more to do, but I'm just telling you, I'm really impressed and excited. So excuse the babble. Let's go on. The next one is
Mayor, can I correct something? Molly, I just looked up. The citywide meter upgrade was water fund debt.
Oh, it
and
is.
that was issued in 2020, so the bonds were already authorized back then. So I wanted to correct that.
Okay,
I
thank you.
didn't. Yeah, I didn't think I had that right, so I just opened up what our funding sources were from 2020.
Right, because you have a vote to authorize bonding, and separately you'll have votes to expend either the contracts or the single contract, depending on how many we're doing.
But that
right?
that's all debt.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
So the next one is a bond for the Lewis Tompkins Hose Firehouse renovations, and I'm looking for a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second?
All right, so that's Justice and Molly. And the dollar amount we're talking about here,
Dare I say, $10,471,630.
okay? So 10,471, that rounds down to 10, right?
Well, I like that logic, Lee. And we're going to try to get it down.
All
I mean,
right.
that's why we're hiring a CM.
Okay. All right, so around 10.5 million.
Yes.
Any discussion on this?
Related to that, if, God forbid, that it does go above 10.471, $630, would we have to do another bond? Could that come out of
No,
general funds?
It
or
can
we-
come out of the fund balance.
Okay.
Yeah, we've already talked about it, and we have some latitude there.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, I've been watching this project for how long?
I think you all started this in 2006.
Yep.
But I know the discussions were going on in the 90s when you and I were on council.
Yeah. So, and, you know, even longer than that, the original building there was supposed to be the central station for the city when it was originally built. And because it was associated with one of the three fire companies, there apparently wasn't a willingness to kind of share it and consolidate it, right? So we built it and became one of them, and now we're actually getting there 40 years later. So, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. So the next one is a resolution repealing certain previously adopted bond authorizations. I'm looking for a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second?
And that's Molly and Dan. And the dollar amount here is a minus 2.4 million, right? We're
It totals
unauthorizing.
2.4. It's 4 projects that span from 2008 to 2015.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. The next one is a resolution setting a public hearing for a local law regarding accessory apartments. And I'm looking for a motion and a second to set the public hearing for August 15th, I believe, right?
Motion.
Second?
So that's Molly and Dan. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor of setting the public hearing for August 15th?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Now we come to the most important item of business of the evening, which we've all been waiting for. If I could do a drum roll, I would, but it's the approval of the minutes of July 18th. I'm looking for Paloma's motion following that drum roll and a second.
Motion to adopt the meeting minutes.
All right.
And we have purposely put one mistake in this so you can find it.
Paloma and a second by
Oh, second.
Molly. Thank you. Any changes, additions, questions, answers, any misspellings of Kyriakou?
I didn't find it.
Well, I just made that up, so, because I figure you always find one, so I would be safe in saying there was one mistake, and, no, we,
All right. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. This is the second opportunity for public comments. And if you haven't spoken before, you may do so now. I don't believe there's anyone in the physical audience that qualifies. Anyone out in the ether? Ben?
No hands raised.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second?
Was that
Ren.
Ren and Dan? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all, and
and
have
we
a good
have
night.
no meeting next week, so our next meeting for the public is August 15th. Thank you.